King Secrim. Secrim was the 38th king of Igothansia who came from the family of the peasants. The kings at From were very pleased at him when he was a child for his extraordinary intelligence, such that at an early age he mastered theology, psychology and history. His political views were all but revolutionary, and the kings were awed at his uncanny ability, natural charm and gift of tongue. They predicted that he would become one of the greatest kings of Igothansia. When the time came that Secrim became king, he immediately studied the ways and behaviors of his followers. He learned all about the courts, the soldiers and the local and foreign traders who had great influence in the land, such that within a short span of time he knew all their strengths, behaviors, and weaknesses. This knowledge he used in running Igothansia, and within a few years he held an insurmountable power, a power that clouded and corrupted his mind beyond reason. Whatever he wished was done, whatever he wanted he got, whatever he desired was served, to the point that he wanted all there was to have: land, property, royalties, and total control and loyalty of the many influential leaders of the land and the soldiers. The kings at From started to worry on his leadership when through the years piles of stories of trade malpractice, lost records of wealth, secret messages of wrongdoings of courts against other courts, transport of large amounts of precious stones to undisclosed locations, ghost projects, and the almost complete change in palace guards and disappearance of many courts at Lekka became their basis. Igothansia was slowly collapsing, crimes were rising, and trade relations with the foreigners were disintegrating. The country headed towards a state of social calamity that he continued to deny and ignored existence. The From kings were helpless and could not do anything, for none of the courts and the soldiers could stand against Secrim. King Secrim had total control of the influential courts and officers of the army, who kept everything that was happening secret to them. He blamed many courts who were not on his side on the state of the country and made them scapegoats on his collapsing rule, charged them for plunder, treason, and various heinous crimes that were arranged by his private guards. Courts loyal to him became his witnesses, and the unfortunate and honest ones who were loyal to the kings at From were sent to prison or in Redth Land as exiles. They killed themselves before their punishment came. The From kings reacted secretly by sending the Iboths to different missions, disguised themselves as traders, courts, and even regular soldiers, to determine what was really going on at Uvia. The revelations of the Iboths filled the kings of From with disappointment and rage. Iboths presented the mounting evidences of lies, plunder, corruption, and murder as they found skeletal remains of lost courts buried in the yard of the palace. They identified courts, soldiers and officers in the army who were involved in those acts, and all of them had close ties and personal relations with King Secrim. Despite the overwhelming evidences, King Secrim maintained innocence, and more than 20 years in throne gave him loyal followers who believed and supported him. He denied all accusations, even with the confessions of some defectors, courts, palace guards, soldiers, and traders, who felt guilty seeing Igothansia fall apart from his rule. He charged them instead for treason and ordered them punished, reasoning that they were the ones who set him up and were the ones responsible for the state of the country. To show their regrets and honesty on their testimonies against the king, the almost 400 sumiks, courts, soldiers, and traders were joined by several peasants, farmers, and fishermen marched together towards the wide plaza of Uvia. Each one burned themselves to ashes. Sumiks had high regard for themselves, and anyone who made a serious mistake or was accused of a shameful act often chose to die than live in indignity. The scene at Uvia sent chills to many sumiks, and it was followed by many others who sided with the martyrs. This caused a wide uproar and rage, sending many civilians to the streets demanding for the kings to take action against the incumbent. The growing protest and continued pressure finally took its toll when many others, young and old, followed the acts of the martyrs. This prompted the kings to order the Iboths to seize the palace, where they found direct and conclusive evidence that linked the king to a grave theft. The ship bound to the Redth Land contained crates of precious stones in large volumes, together with prisoners who were put to sleep by the order of King Secrim. This is to prevent the prisoners from killing themselves because of shame. The ship's captain and the soldiers confessed and admitted that the king commanded them, showing a piece of cloth bearing the king's seal and own handwriting with the details of his order. The same order was given to the palace guards, who were caught by the Iboths loading crates of gold, silver and expensive stones on several carriages that were about to be shipped out from Igothansia. King Secrim's strict policy of sending criminals and those who committed serious deeds to the Redth Land was acceptable to the kings at From, for they believed that Igothansia was not a place for anyone who committed a dark act or offense or serious crimes. Anyone found guilty was exiled. They were not aware that this was just his means to transfer his loot out from Igothansia. Through the years he had repeatedly done such deeds. Many of their riches, precious stones, were never found, for he ordered it buried beneath the soils of the Redth Land. His extremely loyal guards murdered the sailors and soldiers who knew about it. When he sensed that his rule was coming to an end, he attempted the largest shipment of his loot, but the Iboths were able to thwart and seize it. He was punished with exile to the Redth Land along with about 2,000 others who had close connections and ties with him. Any Sumik sent to the Redth Land was like sentenced to death, for its northern part was an empty vast place where nothing of value could be found or traded except for its mud and its hard metallic rocks buried deep beneath its soils. The great river flowing on its northeast bank offered nothing, for its strong current could easily sweep anyone who dared to brave it. Anybody sent to the Redth Land died on its soils in a matter of weeks, either by hunger, when their supply of food ran out, or getting slain by bandits of bikes for their belongings. King Secrim was cursed by many of his followers who suffered the same fate. Their hatred grew each day after experiencing the suffering inside the Redth Land that was void of anything. It was compounded by the Bix bandits who murdered a few of them for their belongings. What kept him alive were his loyal followers, who were mostly officers and soldiers of Igothansia that he promised a share of his loot at the Redth Land. He used them to destroy the small number of bandits who threatened to annihilate all of them, and neutralized the growing hate of his followers when he got help from Bixa. Just before King Secrim was exiled, he told his Bikes' friends, mostly traders and smugglers, that they had wealth and precious stones that they could use for trade. The Bikes knew the story of King Secrim, and this he used to attract a few to help them in secret. He proved his words true when he showed a crate of expensive stones and began giving some as gifts to the Bikes. This convinced the Bikes to help the exiles, and those who were skeptical at the beginning even joined in. Bikes brought food and supplies that were not at all cheap, knowing that the exiles had no other choice but to buy from them. When other traders learned of it, they too offered their products and services at very exorbitant costs, until an exodus of greedy traders from Bixa, wanting a piece or two of the exiles' wealth, came to the Redth Land. Everybody thought that what King Secrim had would soon be gone, and they wanted a piece of it. However, the exiles didn't appear to be running out of expensive gems until the bargaining power shifted to the Sumiks, when the Garadians from the south also joined in the trade. King Secrim's loot was more than enough to gain back the trust of his followers and for the Bikes to break their trust with Igothansia. Bixa and Igothansia had good relations, and the latter forbade them to help anyone that they sent to the Redth Land. Igothansia kept their eyes away from the Redth Land, and within years its northern part came to life and became a progressive village. Trade flourished, villages rose, and a large community began to exist as Bikes married Sumiks and bore children together. This was not true with the Garadians, for their faith forbade anyone to marry other kinds. The flourishing land attracted King Yor, a Bix, to develop ties with King Secrim until Bixa was opened to the exiles. However, it was the Bikes who were lured to migrate to the Redth Land, believing the limitless and seeming abundance of the Sumiks with expensive stones. Through the years several villages had risen, transfer of skills and talents happened until the rich metal deposits underneath the Redth soils were discovered and mined. They were able to set up a manufacturing facility for metals, and many of it was made into weapons that they traded with themselves, to the foreigners, and even to the Sumiks of Igothansia through Bixa. Unknown to the Bikes and the others, King Secrim's inventory of precious stones were already depleting. He knew it would be his end if he lost all of it, for their trade with the foreigners was not enough to sustain them for living in a few more years. He was certain that when he ran out of the commodity that attracted the greedy traders, they would all be gone as fast as they came. The expensive products that they bought from the foreigners and his occasional gifts to corrupt Bix leaders reduced his wealth in time. This he kept in great secret until one day he learned the source of the most precious and expensive stone in the world, the blue stone.